would you do if you lived alone? You knew that someone was coming into your home, moving things around without your consent, and was possibly even drugging your pets. Well, in today's story, from r/no sleep by Mr. Krieg Flexington, we'll be exploring that and how they reacted to this, and then be giving my own thoughts on what I would do. Hello, I'm Cece, and let's get in with the story. It is entitled, "The Old Lady Next Door Might Have Drugged My Cat," and starts out like this. It's 3 a.m, and I can't sleep. For the past hour or so, I've been laying in my bed trying to ignore the soft, frantic scrabbling of tiny claws with an occasional thump mixed in. These noises are a little easier to ignore than the muffled sobbing coming through the wall from the apartment next door. I hope that's not because of me. Sweet Pea has never been the most energetic cat. She's usually curled up in front of the hall closet, napping, when she isn't giving me judgmental stares from around the doorway. I don't know how such a small creature can be so haughty. Somehow, looking down a nose only 4 inches from the floor, she didn't even run around the place when we first moved in a couple months ago. Something must have happened to her today, and I think I know what that was. Earlier today, when I had just gotten home from work, I found the door unlocked. Inside, I found a diminutive older woman who appeared to be dressed as a rodeo clown's lawyer, crouching down over Sweet Pea with a small plastic bag of handmade treats. I'm sure to most people something like that might be shocking, an event that joins the reliable old party stories like, "The time I thought my dog was a pile of laundry," for decades to come. But for me, it was just Thursday. My landlord Ruth has a little issue with boundaries. She's the kind of woman who, in theory, might be lovely to be around in tiny doses. She brings over trays of delicious homemade pastries and cookies that always seem to disappear faster than you could think should be possible. She listens to you talk, the eyes open wide, bulging behind her thick, rhinestone-rimmed glasses, heart open even wider. But it was the 3rd time this week I had come home to find her in my apartment. The 3rd time this week a surprise social interaction was sprung on me when all I wanted to do was kick off my customer service voice at the door and not think about how one day a robot will be able to talk to people better than I do. "Dang it, Ruth. Why are you here when I'm not?" She jolted upright, with a cry like an extinct bird's mating call, knocking the single dining room chair over with her prodigious backside. Sweet Pea tore out of the kitchen like she was on fire, bringing down a tower of old pizza boxes in an uncontrolled demolition. Ruth sheepishly kicked a couple of pizza bones to a pile and swiped surprisingly steady hands down the front of her neon fuchsia pantsuit as she hit me with the full force of her $50,000 smile. The cacophonous rattling of her many plastic arm bangles was drowned out by her voice, as soft as a buzzsaw and twice as loud. "Oh, darling, I thought I would just poke my head in and tidy up a tad. And then I couldn't just not say hello to Sweet Pea. Oh, isn't she just a darling? You know I had one just like her, except he only had 3 legs. This was way back in... Oh yes, I think it was... You can't keep coming in here when I'm not home, Ruth." "Well, why not? It's my gosh darn building. I'm here offering my services at no extra charge to boot. I cook, I clean, I'm pretty nifty with a screwdriver and hammer. I can conversate with the best of 'em. Heck, just the other day..." "It's against the law." "The law?" She threw her head back and cackled deeply, lime green fingernails clutching at her midsection as she leaned back against the sink. "Well, according to Johnny Law, you're just a friend who stays over a lot and helps with the light bill sometimes. I know you don't mean it anyhow. You know, if you just tell me to get out, I'll just up and skedaddle. Come on now, Jack. I'm just trying to make a connection. You don't like me? You like me, don't you, Jack? I just went to help my tenants. What's so gosh darn bad about that? Look, the sink is absolutely crawling with ants. This place could use a woman's touch every now and then." I stormed over to the faucet and opened the hot water handle full blast, swiftly and decisively washing the horde of tiny squirming bugs down the drain. In a way, I felt bad for them. They were just living their little lives, oblivious that in an instant I would decide to wash it all away. Ruth was silent as I enacted my ant genocide, and when I turned around afterwards, she wore a strange expression I couldn't place on her pinched, leathery face. I thought I was being a bit harsh at the time, but sometimes you kind of have to be to get your dang alone time. "There are no more ants, no more ants, no more Ruth. Get out, please." If I had hurt her feelings, she recovered quickly, once again blinding me with a smile far too big for her face. Getting hit with that at point blank is like realizing the light at the end of the tunnel is the reflection of your flashlight on a sleek metal cowcatcher bearing down on you. "I can tell you're having a tough day, darling, so I'll get out of your hair. The last thing I want is you closing yourself off to me, like some of the other tenants. I'll be back another time when you're ready to grab a bag and a broom. Please give Sweet Pea my love." and tell her she's the prettiest most. Sometimes you have to end her sentences for her, so I cut her off there with a winning smile of my own, one forged through many years of serving the public. For maximum effect, I squinted my eyes the same way she did. Most people subconsciously enjoy being mirrored. It makes them feel like they're not alone. Okay, thanks, Ruth. Bye, I shouted as I shooed her away from the door, and finally she began trundling her way to the elevator. Her thick, square heels portended her looming approach, and I pictured the townspeople shuddering their shades in fear that she may darken their doorstep. Before I could flee to the safety of my nest, I turned around to see my neighbor from the other side of the apartment, Darla. Though she had a smirk on her mousy face and a bottle of whiskey in her hands, I could also see that her little black t-shirt was inside out and her mascara was running. Hey, Dork, I see you have survived Hurricane Ruth. Want to forget about your troubles? She tilted her head and looked up at me with bright blue eyes that were swimming as her chipped nails played a beat on the glass bottle. I knew that turning her down would just have her crying and throwing things at the walls all night, and I was so tired I almost did anyways. I figured with any luck, she would be passed out on the couch in 20 minutes and I could finally get to relaxing. Today is just not my lucky day. If she had any comments about the state of my apartment, she mercifully kept them to herself, collapsing into the couch like a crumbling ruin as she eagerly unscrewed the bottle. We didn't talk much, thankfully, merely passing the bottle back and forth as we stared blankly at the flickering glow of the TV. Something was clearly bothering her, but she didn't want to say, and I didn't want to ask. In a way, it was nice to let all of my thoughts slide out of my head like a cracked egg and just exist. Eventually, the bottle ran dry. Then, the unopened bottle of rum I had stashed in the back of the cabinet ran dry too. I don't remember what we said as she stumbled out of the door. As my hand fell from the knob and I turned around, I thought I saw her keyring sitting on the coffee table. In retrospect, perhaps the way I threw open the door was a bit dramatic, but whatever I had been planning to say was shocked out of me when I saw Darla was standing there. I turned to look inside to restart my train of thought, but the bare top of my table gave me nothing. In hindsight, I had probably been looking at a giant cockroach with my bleary eyes for the first time. When I turned back to look at her, my swimming mind once again struggled to convey anything. It's supposed to be my job to communicate with people. It was downright shameful. Whatever I had been trying to communicate, she got a different signal. I won't bore you with the details for my sake more than yours. The only pertinent ones are that I was unfortunately short. I'm a bit out of practice, it seems, and she was never out of my sight the whole time. Well, we both had our eyes closed for most of it, but you get what I mean. She was probably thinking of someone else too. When we were finished, I made the worst mistake of all. I tried to be funny. Hey, try not to forget your keys this time. I think I was setting up some lame pun, but I never got that far. She burst into tears and immediately started grabbing her clothes, turning her face away as I tried to explain. No, wait, I wasn't saying you should leave. She cut me off with a harsh hand gesture. Still facing away, her reply came in a warbling, artificially cheery voice. No, I know that. I just suddenly remembered something, and I have to go check it right now. She sniffled loudly and pulled her clothes on with jerky motions, slowly making her way towards the door. Just before she walked out, she turned and did her level best at a smile that looked like a chalk sidewalk drawing in a downpour. This was, nice. Maybe we can hang another time. Sorry I made it so weird. She was at the door before I could correct her, and it wasn't a full minute before I heard her softly crying through the wall. It was getting pretty late by that point, so I filled up Sweet Pea's bowl, only briefly stopping to note that she hadn't immediately come sauntering up to judge me through half-lidded eyes, and headed to bed. I should have probably checked her litter box, but I was exhausted, and had a pretty good idea that Ruth had made it her first stop. I haven't seen Sweet Pea all night since I caught Ruth feeding her homemade treats. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoes through the wall, followed by several impacts of smashing glass. I got up, motionless in bed, for long seconds, struggling to listen for any signs of life over the maddening scratching coming from my kitchen. My heart races a mile a minute as I slowly climb out of bed. Taking a step towards the wall I shared with Darla, I almost jumped clear out of my skin when a crashing sound rings out from my kitchen. Sweet Pea must have knocked over a mug. I crossed the distance to the wall swiftly, leaving behind a string of mumbled curses I'd rather not repeat here. I pressed my ear to the wall to listen for signs of life from next door, but that only seems to amplify the frantic scratching sounds. The wall somehow picking up the vibrations. Eventually I hear the sobbing pick up again, and I breathe a sigh of relief. I'm not going to say she's okay, but at least she's alive over there. The door to my bedroom makes a soft clicking noise when I turn the handle, and the scratching sounds immediately stop. Swallowing hard, I open the door and slowly step into the silent stillness. I'd forgotten to turn the TV off, and the input screen bathes the room in a cool blue, casting harsh shadows across the discarded cardboard and half-empty plastic bags. The room is as still as you always hope a grave will be. The compressor in the AC kicks on, and a small styrofoam cup clatters to the floor, making my eyes dart to the sink. On the floor below, the tiny white cup lazily rolls back and forth in a small field of shiny ceramic shards. The air from the vent must have knocked over the styrofoam. But the mug? Sweet Pea knows better than to run around on the counter. I'm tempted to leave the mess for later, but I'll know I'll be stepping on it when I make my morning coffee. Plus, it could be dangerous to the 8-pound cat that lives in the bottom half foot of my apartment. I was walking past the sink to grab the broom when I heard a light creak of a stealthy step on a loose laminate floor tile. When I turn to look, I see a dark shape dart out of view under the couch and instinctively take a step back, holding in a scream by biting my lip almost as deep as the shards of my favorite mug bite into my heel. The mess can wait. I need to get a hold of that dang cat before she gives me a heart attack. I want to go pluck the broken shards of ceramic in the bathroom, but for some reason I can't bring myself to walk past the sofa. Sweet Pea? Come on, girl, come out. I feel stupid calling to her like that, especially as the silence that answered hangs heavily in the air. She's as likely to come when I call as she is to climb up onto my lap. We just don't have that kind of relationship. I hoped that at least she would move or something, give me some indication that she was alive. Anxiety digs its long fingers into the back of my skull and squeezes my mind tight as I struggle to dismiss the dark thoughts hemming me in. She's just acting weird. Maybe she caught that roach I saw earlier and doesn't want to talk with her mouth full. Maybe the mug had landed on her head and she lay dying under the couch right now, gray sludge trickling down the sides of her tiny face as she watches what's supposed to be her caretaker tremble in fear and do nothing. I take a deep breath to calm my nerves, and almost immediately I can feel the grip of anxiety loosen. Being careful to not bump the shrapnel in my heel, I slowly lower myself to the floor and peer underneath the couch. I should have turned on the light. It's pitch black under there and cluttered with old plastic wrappers and long-lost socks. Geez, I need to clean up a bit sometimes. I know it's been getting bad, I know. I have to clean it up at some point, but I just never seem to have the energy. Putting on the fake smile voice all day to deal with entitled rich people is exhausting. By the time I get home, I just want to sink into the sofa and forget about the day. Crawling towards the couch on my hands and knees, I think I see some movement, so I lean down and stick my arm under, turning my face away to reach further towards the back as my fingers probe into dusty cobwebs and forgotten pieces of discarded food. I think I hear a rustle and call out to her again. Getting real tired of this, Pea. She responds with a soft, growling whine, somehow coming from in front of me. I turn my head and see her tense body crouched in the darkness under the coffee table. Did she sneak around behind me when I was bending down to reach under the couch? Before I can react, she thunders past my face like a woolly freight train, scattering trash and stray hairs like a smoke bomb. She streaks down the hall and around the corner, yowling and hissing the whole way. I hear her collide with the door as I shoot to my feet, ignoring the searing pain in my heel, to sprint after her as the sounds of her own struggle intensify. I round the corner to the sound of a dull thud that precludes a heavy silence and come to a sudden halt. The door to the hall closet is open. I don't know how long I was standing there, but the thought of Sweet Pea, laying on the floor with a broken neck, an accusatory glare with vacant eyes, snaps me out of it, and I step into the threshold. The closet looks just as I remember, with one small difference. A small cardboard box has fallen off of the shelf and lay slanted in the corner. The side that was labeled is facing away, but I don't need to see it to know which box it is. I don't even realize I've been slowly backing away until a shard of ceramic embedded in my heel makes contact with the baseboard in the hallway, sending a bright bolt of pain up my spine that snaps me out of my daze. I realize now that the perfect silence has been broken by a low growl emanates from just underneath me. I can't begin to describe the relief I feel when I look down and see Sweet Pea hunched at my feet, staring into the darkness of the hall closet. I swiftly close the closet door and bend down to pick her up, wincing as the pain in my legs begins to really make itself at home. Surprisingly, she doesn't complain as I escort her to the bathroom for first aid. I'm not a vet, but as far as I can tell, she has no injuries, save for one small patch of fur missing on her flank. I assume that's from running into the closet door so hard it popped open. Her eyes are clear and alert, and she hasn't had any more episodes the whole time I was pulling the shards of the coffee cup out of my foot. My best guess is she had a reaction to something in the treat Ruth fed her earlier. God only knows what the heck it's made of, and it seems to have worn off. If I see any other strange behaviors tomorrow, I'll get her looked at, but for now I'm eager to put this night behind me. On the way out of the bathroom, I pause at the hall closet and, without turning to look, Gently turn the small lock on the handle. Maybe Sweet Pea can sleep in my bedroom tonight. Just this once. Alrighty, that's going to wrap up our story for today. This is a multiple part story, and it looks like the author at the time of recording this video had only put out the first part. But I'm really excited to see what comes of it, what comes next. I'm excited. Hopefully y'all liked it, and hopefully you want to see the next one, and if you do, just let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to keep an eye on it. I think the story was pretty good. I think that this person is pretty intelligent. I think that they did the most with what they had. I think that they probably didn't assume that that was the landlord lady coming in the middle of the night and pushing things around. I think that as the readers, we can definitely assume that that's probably what happened, that she was in there trying to maybe poison the cat. I have a kind of suspicion that she might try to drug him and cut off one of his legs to make it more like her cat that she misses so much, especially whereas the cat reminds the landlord of the old cat so much. What do you think will happen in the next installment? What do you think you would do in this scenario? Do you think you'd stay there? Do you think you'd move? What would the lengths be that you would go for some cheap rent? What do you think is going to happen with the neighbor? What do you think makes them so sad all the time? Maybe it's the landlord as well. I guess we'll have to see. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it a lot, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.